Okay, so I've outlined two or three issues that really concern me in modern Ireland. One of the things about, uh, or one of the claims that's constantly made is that it's very easy to list your complaints and say, this is wrong, that's wrong. You know, try being in our shoes, try running the country. Um, that's what populists do. They latch on to people's complaints and they don't necessarily offer any sort of reasonable solution. A bit like the drunk in the bar who knows the answer to everything. So I'm actually going to try, hopefully, do the opposite. The idea of this podcast is to hopefully start a bit of a debate if, people latch on and get to watch this. I don't claim to have all the solutions, but I do firmly believe that we've gone off the rails somewhere in the last 4 or 5 years.
I'm sure,
Most
Jerry, there'll be a lot of comments in the comment section down below. There'll be
Okay,
a
and
lot of
look, if you
conversation
want
there.
to say I'm the biggest idiot you've ever seen, whatever, that's absolutely fine. Comments are better than nothing. Give us some feedback, good, bad, or indifferent,
Yeah.
because if we get, we're making these videos in July. We're going into holiday season. September is kind of when things go back to normal. The kids go back to school and people go back to work after holidays. So somewhere, I don't know, late September, early October, we'll see what the feedback is like, and if there's something there to take further on, fine. If not, and 90% of you think I'm an idiot who doesn't know what he's talking about, that's fine as
Fire
well.
away
All
in the comments, yeah.
all I can tell you is I've
Going
said
on 'em.
this already. I feel about half a stone lighter. I've noticed around my lungs and chest. I feel this has been great. It's been a therapy session. Um, so yeah, I'd recommend it to anyone. Now, so yeah, the populist just lists the complaints and doesn't make any suggestions. So I'm going to hopefully try and counter that. I'm going to actually show you some suggestions that I have that I think that would make Ireland a better place, and I think crucially would make Ireland feel more democratic and people feel more involved in their community and their country. First of all, I'm going to recommend a video, and it's called The Agenda, Their Vision, Your Future. I would recommend, it's a long video. I skipped bits of it. The economic stuff I'm not great at, but I don't even know if I necessarily agree. But I do feel that our government and other governments are working to some sort of program that I don't understand. When I look at the likes of Harris and Micheál Martin, Simon Harris, I don't feel like they represent me anymore. I feel like they've come along with this agenda and they're just imposing it, and everyone's agreed that it's great and it's right. And I don't know. And it's very funny as well, because I watched the last election and both Micheál Martin and Simon Harris really struggle when somebody sort of breaks through and asks them a question. You might remember that lovely lady down in Cork who was, I think she was a carer or a
Yeah.
health assistant herself, and he essentially couldn't handle it. He couldn't handle it,
Yeah.
and in the end, he told her she was wrong and walked away, and it just looked terrible.
Yeah, no, sorry. Thank you very much for coming.
Yeah, I'm out of here. I can't handle this. So I do recommend that if you get a chance, because I do feel our government and other governments are operating to some sort of a. I don't know what it is. I don't know if this is what it is, but I definitely think it's worth a look. The other thing I really want to see an end of is I read this book about 6 weeks ago in about 3 days, because it sums up so much of the modern world. There's too many people in bullshit jobs. And remember, if they're in government bullshit jobs, they're paid for by you and me, the taxpayer.
Yeah.
Why is the National Children's Hospital way late and way over budget? If I bought a house in Dublin 5 years ago for 500,000, and then 5 years later still haven't moved in and it's gone up to 3 million, it doesn't happen. And yet it happens in this government world, and it's presented to us as sure, that's natural. It's quite natural for a hospital to be several years late and multiples of the original price. Yeah, sure, what can we do? Don't accept it, folks. You're a taxpayer. There's over 2 million of us in the country. Nobody represents the taxpayer. Nobody cares about us anymore. It's all these little groups. It's like my friend with her white male people who never went to college. They shouldn't matter. It's bullshit. The taxpayer becomes central. Renew the social contract. Social contract is the idea that you work, you pay taxes, you pay social insurance, and the government looks after you if you're sick or ill, or if you're bringing a new baby into the world or whatever. And then at 65 or whatever, 60 if you're a civil servant, obviously, you then retire and have a pension. I think the social contract is seriously under attack. I think it's been undermined.
Not reciprocal enough.
Well, for example, to give one example, the government has no legal obligation to house anyone who's homeless in this country, unless they come into the country and say they're a refugee or asylum seeker.
Yeah.
So that makes the refugee stroke asylum seeker more important than somebody who might have worked there for 10 or 12 years.
Yeah.
Whose landlady says, my sister's coming back from Australia. Sorry, I need the house back. Out you go. That's a major, major thing. It's major. If the social contract, which goes all the way back to, well, some say, a lot of people would say Bismarck, Germany, late 19th century. That's the basis of modern Western society. People who work pay taxes and social insurance. The government looks after them if they need it. If that's gone, we need a debate, folks, if the government doesn't believe in that anymore. Number 2, we need a full review and modernisation of the civil service, and we need no more bullshit jobs. It's all taxpayers' money. Folks, the government wastes it in millions and billions. We currently effectively cannot defend our territorial waters. It was on prime time on RTE last night. A lot of people don't know this, but effectively 90% of Ireland's territory is ocean. We are supposed to be in charge of an area about 9 times the size of our land area. It's a huge slice of the Atlantic Ocean. We, at the moment, effectively, depending on who you talk to, have between 1 and 2 naval ships. Yeah. And yet we give NGOs something like €6 billion a year. These are choices, but they're choices with your money. You're a taxpayer. And if you're not happy with that, rule number 1 of any country should be its own people come first, and the country can defend its territory. Do our own people come first? And can we defend our territory? Number 3, I think we should have a referendum on international protection, because quite simply, we can't sustain the numbers of people coming into the country. We voted on citizenship 20 years ago by 79 to 21%. And yet that vote was that basically people were coming into the country to bring a baby into the world in Ireland and get an Irish passport. We voted 79%. No, we don't accept that. And yet by a kind of a backdoor route, we're now being told we have to accept everyone who comes to the country and claims asylum. I think that's crazy, especially in Ireland with the housing situation, especially given we've taken in 100,000 people from Ukraine. We need a debate. We're not allowed to have a debate, apparently. And that's a very, very dangerous thing to be doing. We need an open debate. In my opinion, we should have a visa system like Australia. We also need to debate exactly how many people can live in the country. Because if our system doesn't catch up with housing, then we're just digging a bigger and bigger hole for ourselves. The whole thing's crazy. And it's got to be debated. It's got to be debated openly and sensibly. You cannot exclude large numbers of people. You cannot label them far right. It's bullshit, because people are genuinely concerned. They see their children leaving the country because they can't get a house. They see other people coming in entitled to free accommodation. The whole thing is crazy. It's absolutely crazy, and ignoring it isn't going to make it better. It's only going to make it worse. An open debate, and then if necessary a referendum, because it's been imposed on us by international law, and I don't think that's a good way of doing politics and democracy. Effectively, the Geneva Convention of 1951 has been extended all around the world. The Geneva Convention came in a few years after World War II. 3 million, mostly Germans, were stuck in mostly communist countries, and nice Joseph Stalin wouldn't let them go home. So it was passed in Geneva, neutral Switzerland. Let's get the last of the war refugees home. It's now being extended to refugees all around the world without really telling us, oh, it's an international legal obligation. It's not a good way of doing democracy. In 1951, the population of the world was 2 billion. It's now 8 billion. And if you think about it, there's only about 30, 35 Western countries that these refugees and asylum seekers are trying to get in. And if you extend it, as some want, to climate refugees, you're talking about potentially 2 billion people. This is madness. It's insanity. You cannot impose stuff like this. You're just making a bigger and bigger problem. We need to grow up. We need to be mature and have a debate about exactly how many people we can take, whether they're migrants or whether they're asylum seekers. I think we need a visa system. We also need a debate. Australia had it recently on what exactly is the ideal number of people living in the country. We're not having any of that at the moment, and that's not making it better. It's only making it worse. Number 4, pet subject, I mentioned it already, directly elected mayors, cities, towns, even counties, proper local democracy. We basically have the weakest local democracy in Western Europe. You want people to get involved and feel involved, bring back the local, because the local is something that Ireland does very, very well anyway. Number 5, a republic should have a commitment to treat the weakest and the weakest and the most vulnerable as fairly and humanely as possible. All civil servants, in my opinion, should be made swear an oath that they would do that and make a serious effort to cut down on absolutely needless bureaucracy, which makes a lot of people's lives miserable. Number 6, there's a general agreement that life in the West isn't going to keep. We're not going to keep getting wealthier, that we've sort of hit a plateau, and in some countries people are starting to get poorer. If that's the case in Ireland, then the next best thing after, actually I think a better thing than standard of living, is quality of life. I have it down here as QOL, a commitment to improve the quality of life in as many areas as possible. In many ways, the quality of life in Ireland is already very good. I read recently that this is one of the best countries in the world to be a child, which as a former youth worker pleases me greatly. So there are a lot of very good things about the quality of life already in Ireland, but to improve as much as possible any areas where we're not doing well in. Quality of life is everything from the fact that there's a park nearby to bring the kids or just yourself to relax, to nobody's really living in high rise.
Yeah, the more nature, the better.
Exactly. And like I say, we are not a very densely populated country, even now with the population going up. Number 7. Treat housing as a national emergency. We did it for COVID. So please don't tell me we can't. If the government wants to shut down the country for 2 years over a version of the flu, it did it. You can do the same for housing, folks. Simply having a generation of young people in a country with around 4% unemployment leaving because they can't afford or see no possible option of ever buying a house, I think is an absolute disgrace. I think it's gone on for 10 years and more that we haven't built enough houses each year. I don't understand why nobody's held accountable for that. It's a disgrace. Housing's a national emergency. It goes in with what's the correct population of the country anyway, and plan around that. Please, national emergency housing. We do not need to lose another generation of clever, talented young people. Number 8, update and modernise our libel laws. They are ridiculous. They are hundreds of years out of date. My friend John Delaney used them for a decade and a half to stop the truth being written about him and what he was doing to football in this country. And finally, he couldn't do it anymore because the truth came out. It shouldn't have taken as long. He wouldn't have done the damage he did. Our libel laws, as promised by Leo Varadkar about a decade ago, seriously need to be updated because Mr. Delaney could win €1 million and more and put entire magazines and newspapers out of business because of our libel laws. If you think about it, there's something a bit daft about libel anyway, because you can't libel an ordinary person. You can only libel a rich and a powerful person already. So remember, we're meant to be a republic. A full open discussion. Number 9. On a united Ireland. This fascinates me. We're not discussing this. I personally think we'll see a united Ireland within 15 to 20 years for one simple reason. The average person in the south of Ireland is now about 40% better off than the average person in the north of Ireland. One of the things I believe is that ultimately economics decides practically everything. When the Troubles started, Ireland was significantly poorer than Britain, and Ireland the average person in the south, the Republic, was about 20% less well off than in the north. It has completely flipped on its head. And yet nobody wants to discuss this. And yet Leo Varadkar, who's now out of politics, is going around openly talking about it. In other words, this is yet another real live issue which our establishment, our politicians and our bureaucrats have decided they're not going to talk about. No.
Didn't Mary Lou go into Parliament there last week?
Yeah.
And request it?
Yeah. Well, Sinn Féin, to give them their credit, obviously enough, it's a founding principle of Sinn Féin. For what it's worth, I personally don't really believe in the Sinn Féin vision of it, and I don't think sort of a heads and tails referendum numbers is the way to go about it. But look, she's got her job to do as the leader of Sinn Féin, and she's doing it. But our establishment have decided they're not going to discuss it. Why?
Yeah.
Because almost certainly, in my opinion, it will happen, and a bit like Germany, nobody predicted in 85, 86, 87 that the wall would come down in Berlin and Germany would be unified. But it happened very, very quickly. Yeah. I think the same thing could happen here. And one of the reasons why it fascinates me is because almost certainly the Unionists in the north will demand to keep the parliament in Ulster. Which means that then maybe Connacht and Munster and even Leinster would say, well, hold on, if they're getting a regional parliament or keeping theirs, we want one as well. In other words, more local democracy. I think it's fascinating. And the natural sort of all-island economy is knitting together anyway. I read or I heard recently that it's 6 times bigger than it was in 1998 when the Good Friday Agreement was...
fascinating, yeah.
So, yeah, I think we need a full, open discussion. Don't mind about offending the Unionists.
No, let's talk about it. Let's talk, yeah.
Yeah, let's talk. They are 1 million of 7 million people on the island. They are 1 million of about 70 million people in the UK. Fair enough. Some of them might say, over my dead body. That's fine. We live in a democracy. They're entitled to their opinion, but we're entitled to a discussion. Number 10. Could we possibly have a full, open discussion on the Green Agenda? The Green Agenda, folks, in my opinion, having read up on it, is riddled with contradictions. The idea that we broke the weather and we can fix it again. Sorry. Human beings can do a lot of things, but I'm not sure about that. I think there's a whole argument to be had. I think absolutely the world needs to take environmental issues seriously. Yeah. But the idea, Ireland, next door to the UK produces 1% of all the world's greenhouse gases. Ireland produces 1/10 of what the UK produces.
Yeah.
And yes, our biggest producers of greenhouse gases are agriculture. That's because we never had any big factories, so we don't really have industrial pollution.
Yeah.
And the other one is transport. It's very interesting that everything on the Green Agenda, from restricting flights in Dublin Airport to reducing or restricting the amount of food we produce, seems to naturally impact the country negatively. The Green Agenda, I'm very suspicious. I'm very suspicious that it seems to be very much a left wing.
Look, I don't like waste. I don't like pollution.
Yeah.
But this global warming, the world's getting warmer. Like, why are you complaining? And then also, it seems like we've stopped talking about it completely. Like, have we solved it completely?
Yeah.
Climate change is gone. Like,
yeah.
No more documentaries. Like,
well, as a tour guide, you learn that the last ice age melted away from Ireland 15,000 years ago.
Yeah.
In the or approximately 15,000 BC, so let's say about 17,000 years ago. In the intervening years, Ireland's climate has gone from Arctic to subarctic to subtropical to where it is now, which is Atlantic maritime. In other words, the climate has always changed.
Yeah.
2,000 years ago, the Romans could grow wine around about where Newcastle is today in the north of England. 1,000 years ago, the Vikings could settle in Greenland. 600 years ago, the Vikings had abandoned Greenland, possibly because it got much colder. 1400 to 1850 is called the mini ice age.
Is it?
1000 to 1400 is called the medieval warm period.
And what were the Dark Ages then?
The Dark Ages were roughly around about 500 AD, after the collapse of the Roman Empire. There's a guy in Denmark who suggests that as the sun goes around the earth goes around the sun, there's little natural wobbles in its orbit.
Yeah.
Sometimes it wobbles a little bit away from the sun, so it gets colder. Sometimes it wobbles a little bit nearer the sun, so it gets warmer. One of the things that happens when it gets warmer is you get more displays of the northern lights. We are currently having more displays of the northern lights. And one of the things all these discussions do, and all these reports, is they leave out the scientists who disagree. They only put in the scientists who agree, and then say 200 scientists agree. And you could have 30 or 40 say, well, I'm not actually convinced that this is the reason it's getting warmer, or if we do this, it will make it cool back down again. The other thing is, human beings are adaptive. The people who live on the island of Ireland, 7 times in the last 15,000 years, have been able to adapt to the climate changing. Now, with our modern technology, I've a hunch we'll be able to do it again. The green agenda, maybe, but
Have a word.
we need a discussion. It's like so many things. We just take this stuff as absolute gospel truth, and it's become like a new heresy. Well, I'm prepared to be a heretic.
Guys, don't forget, drop your thoughts in the comments as well. Keep the engagement going down there.
And last but by no means least, this is definitely a personal issue. I do believe as a wealthy country, we should take in people who want to come here. We should take in normal economic migrants. Fine, they've hugely benefited the country. And I think we should have some sort of a quota system for people escaping genuine persecution in their homelands. But I do believe we need a quota system similar to what Australia has. But here's something I personally would love to see. It's a pet issue of mine. A lot of people won't know this, but one of the main countries that Irish people emigrated to in the 18th and 19th centuries, America, Canada, Britain next door, Australia and New Zealand. But the other one, in what was called the Big Six, was Argentina. There's about 1 million people of Irish descent living in Argentina.
That's why they have the Gingers, McAllister and all.
Yeah, that's right. Famously, Alexis McAllister. Yeah, his folk are originally from North County Dublin. Now, Argentina, oh my God, it's had its economic woes more or less since the Second World War. I'd like an annual visa quota or quote for Argentinians. Maybe, I don't know, 5, 7, maybe 10,000. How about we give the priority to guys who can work in the construction industry? Yeah, that might be a good idea. Yeah, it's a pet issue. It's a pet topic of mine. I write an article 2 or 3 times a year and send it to the Irish newspaper out there. The editor stayed in my house a few years ago. Guillermo McLaughlin is his name. So don't forget the good old Argentinians and a visa system for them. There you go. That's it. Don't say I didn't make any suggestions. If they're complete and total rubbish, feel free to tell me. But if you like what I said, if you broadly agreed with what I said, even if you disagree, please let us know. The worst thing you can have is to throw a load of ideas out there and nobody comes back. Please don't do that to us. We'd love to hear your comments, good, bad or indifferent. If you want us maybe to take this a bit further a few months down the road, maybe in the autumn, we'll do it. If you want us to shut up and totally stop talking, we will. But that's it. That is 40 years of experience and ranting off my chest. I don't know how that makes you feel, but my God, I feel a hell of a lot better than I did an hour or 2 ago when we started making this. Thank you all. Enjoy your summer. Keep reading the Dublin Gazette every Thursday when it comes out. And yeah, let us know what you think. And if you want, we'll come back to you in the autumn. Cheers.
Brilliant. See you next time.